Hey guys, just wanted to make a quick video here that outlines how I made my Urithiru LED light up tower. For those of you unaware, Urithiru is a city that comes from the fantasy series The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's a fantastic series. The city is described as being 10 levels, as well as being the most majestic, most amazing, most important city. Now, one of the tricks here, since this does come from a book, there's not necessarily a visual adaptation. However, there's plenty of fan art online, and in addition to this, in the book itself, we get a sketch from Shallan, who draws the tower, not only from looking at it straight on, but also from above, and this was perfect for my modeling. So basically what I did, I went into Fusion 360 and used these sketches as my canvas, and then began to trace. The basics for 3D modeling, at least if you're using Fusion, is to first trace in 2 dimensions and then extrude things into 3 dimensions. Obviously, there's going to be limits to this because if you're trying to do something that has a more organic look to it, it just doesn't really correlate to a 2D sketch very well. But for a structure like Urithiru, that's perfect. It's basically 10 rings, each one a little bit smaller than the last. And then, of course, there's a lot of detail on each layer. Now, the nice thing is, in Fusion 360, you can actually repeat a pattern. You can do this along a line, or, which was more beneficial in my case, along an axis. Since these are each a disc or a ring, I only had to do a little sketch of a portion of the detail on each level, and then I was able to just have it replicate all the way around. Now, if you look at it straight on, there's kind of a centerpiece on each level that is different and distinct from the rest of the level. So basically, I did the part that repeats all the way around and then went back on top of it and added the more distinct, unique central feature to each level. We also had to add these little pillar platform things, just try to kind of mimic the way it looks in the sketch as best we can. And each level has some detail, but in the sketch, it's not really clear what's going on, so you kind of had to ad-lib a little bit, if you will. Get a little creative. Maybe these were the fields. Moving up the levels, we know there's going to be some buildings or some homes that are on the balconies. So what we did here, I basically just made, 7, 8, 9 unique little buildings on each level. And then actually, I just had these also repeat in a pattern. I changed the interval of repetition for each building or each set of buildings so that it didn't look like a pattern. But if you look closely, you can see that it's the same building is replicated several times per level. And that's kind of how the process works for detailing. Obviously, we're doing a time lapse here because this did take a long time. It is still a lot of detail, even if we're able to duplicate or repeat the pattern across each level, and each level is distinct from the one before it. And so yeah, this took a lot of time. As you can see, I feel like each one of these time lapses was at least half an hour or more. I think I had 24 of them in total, so whatever that comes out to be is a rough estimate of how long this thing took to model. Now, it wasn't just the city though. I really wanted to set it against the mountains where it sits, as well as have the Stormfather looming above it. Now, for the purists here, I realize that, hey, this is a little bit lore inaccurate. Yes, Urithiru is high enough in the mountains that it sits above the high storm, so why is the Stormfather here? Why is the high storm here? Because it looks cool, okay? Anyway, obviously the process where clouds and mountains are not as rigid or geometric as the city, I definitely use Fusion 360's sister program Mesh Mixer a lot to get this effect. Now, the trickiest part here was going to be the Stormfather himself. He's described as a face in the sky. So I'm not really an artist. I'm very new still to 3D modeling, and especially when it comes to 3D sculpting. That's a lot trickier than just drawing lines and extruding them to a specific dimension. So what I ended up doing was I found an image of the Stormfather online, just some fan art that matched fairly well what I picture when I read these books. And then in Fusion, I basically made a stencil. I traced along the picture, highlighting the core details of his nose, the wrinkles, his cheeks, the beard, basically everything that I wanted to stand out. Next, after making that stencil, I put that into Mesh Mixer, and that was my guide of where to push and pull the clay. This was not perfect, and this is the part where you just got to get creative and keep playing with it till you like it. I think I started the process over like 3 or 4 times, just because I was never getting it where I wanted to. There were some times I made the cloud really big and looked super menacing and awesome, but practically I had to remember, okay, I still have to print this, and how are you going to hold it up there, and is it going to make the whole thing fall over? So I did have to scale it down a little bit. I think I found a good balance to still have the impression of a storm looming. I did add some smaller clouds kind of descending from the Stormfather that would be attached to the mountains as the same piece as they printed. Once all the parts were designed, the next thing was to hollow out the model and split it up for printing. I have the Bamboo P1S. Because of that, I have a build volume for printing of 250 millimeters cubed, which is a decent size, but not the biggest. And I really wanted this to be a good sized print. I am going to put it up on a high shelf. The other largest print that I did that goes up there was the Infinity Gauntlet, and that's just under 2 feet. So I wanted this to be around that size, maybe even just a tad taller. I had to split it into 8 separate pieces for printing. I decided to paint this before I assembled it all. For the tower itself, I don't believe he gives us a color of what the tower is. And so in my mind, it naturally has always looked white. That's probably because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and Minas Tirith is another ringed city that sits on several levels. To make it a little unique, I did do more of an off-white, like an ivory color, and then I went ahead and splashed some, just with a paintbrush here, some gold, silvers, a nice shiny black, and some other just mineral metallic colors, just to give it a little bit of a contrast, a little bit of just so it's not just one solid color all the way through. Installing the LEDs. Now this was tricky. Before I glued the LEDs inside the tower, we had to program them. I did this using just a little Arduino board. Altogether, we ended up using, I think it was 250 LEDs, 150 for the tower itself. After all the lights were soldered together, that was when we had to try and program them. Now, I don't know anything about programming, as I've said before. I just use ChatGPT, I tell it what I want the lights to do, and it generates a code for me. Now, ChatGPT is not perfect. The AI uprising is not going to happen yet. We are safe for the time being. I can't tell you, it was really frustrating because I would tell it, hey, this is what I want the tower to do. And eventually we tweaked the tower till it got to the way I liked it. I'd say, okay, don't change anything about the tower, but I need the clouds to be doing this. And it would make the clouds start doing that, and the tower would stop working. And it took a lot of coaxing, a lot of work to finally get this to come out right. Eventually, it's still not quite what I envisioned, but it was close enough, and I was so sick of messing with it and fighting with the AI that I gave up. It'd probably benefit if I just went and figured out how to code these the right way myself, but time, right? Getting them into position was really tricky because the tower wasn't built, and I realized I couldn't attach the pieces of the tower, or that would make it even harder. So I did the best I could, heating some hot glue to put them into position. But as you can see when it lights up, the LEDs are not perfectly straight. I would have liked to get them a little bit better, but frankly, I just didn't have enough room to work with. Urithiru, the legendary city of Roshar. So it's a little rocky, a little rough around the edges, but I'm still really proud of this project, primarily because Unlike most of the other ones I've done, this one was entirely from scratch. I wasn't basing it off another model I had seen. This was all just applying things that I had learned from past projects. And it just goes to show you how you can improve and learn. Even if things aren't perfect, don't give up, just keep going and do your best. The skills you acquire with each project you do will only better prepare you for the next one you take on until you're able to start doing your own stuff. If you have any suggestions on how to improve this project or how to make a project like this easier, I am all ears. Thanks for watching.